Eastern South Carolina's news station. Randy Tinney, Jan Pate, Rick Henry on sports, and Steve Camps with the weather. This is Action News.
The problems that affect our farmers affect all of us. And that's why tonight we'll spend most of this newscast giving you a closer look at the farm situation in the PD and Horry County. It's an In Focus report. You'll see more of them in the months ahead. But first, the top stories of the day. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jan Pate.
And I'm Randy Tinney. Pat Bellamy is listed in stable condition tonight at McLeod Regional Medical Center's Coronary Care Unit. The former Horry County magistrate was admitted last night for chest pains. Bellamy collapsed in federal court after a jury found him guilty of smuggling marijuana. Bellamy and 2 other men were found guilty on all charges against them in the Operation Jackpot drug trial. Bellamy faces up to 90 years in prison.
It's day 3 in the federal trial of former legislator Billy Eady of Lake City. Eady and Lake City businessman Lou Gowdy are charged with bilking the Farmers Home Administration of over $300,000 in 1981. Eady took the witness stand in his own defense this afternoon. He told the jury he gave his father $70,000 from the crop disaster loan to repay a loan from his father. Later, he asked for the money back and used part of it to buy a treasury note. Eady testified he turned profits from the interest back into his farming operation and did not knowingly violate any federal regulations. Eady brought a laugh from the packed courtroom when he said he wouldn't try anything like that in his own hometown. The trial continues tomorrow. 28-year-old Moses Peterson, who is on death row at Central Correctional Institution, will be returned to Florence within the next couple of days. Peterson and Craig Stubbs were both sentenced to die in the electric chair for the murder of an 18-year-old Darlington man. However, the state Supreme Court overturned that sentence last October. The state's high court said it reversed the verdict because inaccurate instructions were given to the jury by the judge. Peterson and Stubbs must now be retried for the December 1983 slaying of Jeff Lee, an employee at National Car Rental.
Former U.S. Attorney Henry Dargan McMaster has decided to run for the U.S. Senate. After tossing around the ideas of running for the governor and lieutenant governor positions, McMaster became the first candidate to officially pitch his hat into the U.S. Senate race. McMaster says it's time for new action, new ideas, and new vision for South Carolina. McMaster, the driving force behind the prosecution in the Operation Jackpot drug trial, says he will continue to crack down on crime if elected to the Senate. The Republican candidate also says he will never tire of representing South Carolina in Washington should he win the race.
As we mentioned earlier, this edition of Action News 15 is going in focus. Many times we can't go in depth with a story, and that's what you, the viewers, would like to see. This week, when it was expected that farm foreclosure notices were going to be sent to tens of thousands of farmers across our country, we decided to take a closer look at farm problems in our own area. Here's Randall King.
Jan, whether we know it or not, farming problems affect us all. The United States produces most of the world's food, but farmers are now faced with their greatest crisis since the Depression. There's no doubt that agriculture is a backbone of the economy in our part of South Carolina, and local farmers face each new year wondering if it's worth putting more seeds in the ground.
Tamalpur Streeter feels he's actually better off this year because he didn't plant a crop. His family farm spreads over several acres north of Chesterfield, but last year the main farming he and his dad did was raising livestock. Tamalpur left the better pay of a city job 8 years ago to return to the farm. Times are tough now, but he doesn't regret that decision.
I know not only that I love it, I know it's a way of life, and I just believe that it can be profitable. I've always wanted my children to be raised up on a farm.
Streeter says he's in better financial shape than some, but there has been sacrifice. None of his equipment is new, and his family lives in a mobile home. Still, he sees better days ahead.
And I haven't given up yet, even though, during this crisis time, situation. And I'm still hoping, more or less, don't have all the answers, but I'm just believing that things will change.
So next year it'll be more than just cows on this farm. The Streeters hope once again to plant row crops. But as they do that, they'll face some incredible challenges just trying to break even.
America's farming crisis comes from a combination of problems. The cost of machinery has increased in recent years. Along with that, fuel prices have also gone up. And perhaps the greatest factor is the way interest rates have skyrocketed. Farm loans are harder to pay back. At the same time, the market price for the products has dropped dramatically. World demand is less. America has plenty of food with nowhere to sell it. National leaders think that trend will change. However, some farmers may have to go out of business before it does.
If we can keep these efficient producers on the land and keep them in business, there's definitely going to be a demand as we see an increase in demand for food in the world.
In the meantime, lenders like the Farmers Home Administration are cracking down on delinquent loans, and for some farmers, foreclosure may be the only alternative.
Joining us now in our studios is Mr. Penn Rogers. He's the District Director of the Farmers Home Administration working here in Florence. And maybe first of all we should tell you, Mr. Rogers, and we should tell everyone that those notices that were expected to go out are not going out. That word came from Washington and we don't know why. Now about those notices, they offer a lot of alternatives to foreclosures, and maybe you can explain what that means.
Randy, we would prefer to think of those notices as positive servicing actions, which outline some alternatives to the ultimate adverse action that most lenders can experience. There are 7 alternatives that are outlined in these notices that you referred to, and these alternatives are such things as rescheduling the debts, reamortization of debts. We can also consider deferrals, consolidations, and interest reduction, which is known as limited resource interest rates. We can consider restructuring the entire farming operation and the debt structure.
It seems like we hear farmers saying more and more that we just need more time. Does Farmers Home offer them this more time?
Well, if one or more of these servicing alternatives will assist and help, certainly that will offer them a chance to become successful in time.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And we feel that this can help quite a number of farmers.
Will it buy them enough time to get by?
Well, I can't rightly answer that, Randall, because none of us can project what future crop prices and commodity prices of farm products will be. It doesn't look good for the near future.
Very quickly, what's the role of Farmers Home? Can Farmers Home help make a difference in this current crisis we're going through?
We certainly feel that we can, and we think that these servicing alternatives that we've been authorized by a recent change in our regulation will assist in a substantial number of our clients.
All right, Mr. Rogers, Penn Rogers, thank you very much for joining us. Yes, there is another side to this story. Many farmers are making a living and even a profit. Clay Williams talked with a Marion County farmer today who's not thinking about foreclosure. Instead, he's taking money to the bank.
Dupree Atkinson is a third-generation farmer. Tobacco is his main moneymaker, but he's diversified his operation with produce and cattle. The 30-year-old Atkinson considers himself a success.
In terms these days and times in agriculture, anybody that's able to make their payments and stay up with their payment schedules and pay their debts and their bills and stuff, you're doing well.
Atkinson makes a marginal profit from his work, but believes times are going to get worse for farmers before they get better.
Agricultural problems mainly started in the Midwest, and we're just seeing basically it's starting right now, trickling into our area. And with this FHA lifting of the moratorium on foreclosures, you're going to see a lot more farm sales in our area.
Why has Atkinson been able to profit while so many of his fellow farmers have fallen on hard times?
I'm not a real large farmer, but we've kind of kept ourselves in perspective as far as what we can afford to do and what we can't afford to do, and we've diversified and tried to establish a cash flow, and that's helped. But we hadn't sunk all our eggs in one basket.
One of the keys to Atkinson's success is that he's been able to diversify, but he notes how many banks are going to be able to help farmers to diversify when they're having trouble making loans now. In Marion County, Clay Williams, Action News 15.